Hello and welcome to FPL Have a Beer, Pepsi Max for the second interview in a row. I'm letting the side down here, where I invite you to join me to have a beer while I talk about FPL. Please do like the video to help get it out there. And at the time we're recording, we're getting very close to 700 subscribers, and it would mean the world to me if I could get the channel up to 700 subscribers before it hits its 6th month birthday in a couple of weeks. So if you could do that by hitting the subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Thank you so much. And a brief bit of news, I've just activated channel memberships for this channel. So if you'd like to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Memberships are just 99p per month. Members will get instant access to the interviews that I'm doing and any other videos I make basically as soon as I upload them to YouTube. Because otherwise, usually it takes me a couple of weeks to release the interviews like this one now. So basically, you'll get early access, and there'll probably be other perks added as we go along. So please, if you want to support the channel a bit more to show your support, please check that out. And thanks to Steve of Elite FPL and FPL Discomfort, who've already signed up as channel members. So welcome to another interview in the FPL Meet the Manager / Content Creator series, where I ask one of our lovely FPL content creators onto the channel to have a chat about their experiences of FPL and content creation, their thoughts on FPL and mental health, and we have a chat about FPL and how their season is going towards the end. So for the latest interview in the series, I have the pleasure of welcoming onto the channel a man who several people have described to me as the most knowledgeable person in terms of football in the FPL community. I'll tell you who said that to me later, James. James from Planet FPL. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you, mate. You mean who did I pay to say that, more likely?
I've heard a few people say that, to be fair, mate. How are things, mate?
What's that, sorry?
How are things?
Yeah, good. Yeah, no grumbles at all. Thank you very much for the very kind intro, and thank you for the invite onto the show, mate. Been looking forward to this.
Very welcome, mate. So I know you said you've watched a couple of them before. I usually start up by just asking a few like warm-up questions. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, things like where did you grow up, who do you support? I've got a few questions on Spurs after because I know you're a big Spurs fan. What are your first memories of football, things like that?
Oh, gosh. Where did I grow up? Grew up in Hornsey, which is North London, pretty much kind of midway of the sort of Arsenal-Tottenham divide, actually.
Okay.
I've lived in Enfield for the last, 15 years or so, which is very much more Tottenham area, getting away from Arsenal. That's where I grew up. Earliest memories of football, I got taken when I was very young. My mum and dad took me to my first game when I was 11 months old.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't remember it, but I can tell you it was a 2-2 draw with Leicester, apparently. So that would have been in late 1984. You can all work out how old I am now. And I've been going to Tottenham. I've had a season ticket since I was 6. So I can't truthfully remember much before that. My mum's mum, who's sadly no longer with us, she lived in a flat opposite the Park Lane, which is where the home end is now at Tottenham. And I remember mum and dad coming back from a game. We'd beat Coventry 3-2. We'd been losing 2-0. That is pretty much my only football memory of not going. Before that, it's about all I can remember. So mum told me I cried when England lost to West Germany in the 1990 World Cup semi-finals on penalties. No recollection of it. And it's that summer I started going to Tottenham. So I can't remember much before that.
Do you remember? Because my first memories of like going to football was the 1990 Tottenham FA Cup win. Was it 91? I can't remember now.
Yeah. So that was my first full season. Was that season 1991? So yeah, it started well and it's all gone horribly downhill pretty much since, or stayed mediocre, let's say.
So yeah, I've got a couple of questions on Spurs here. Favorite ever Spurs player?
Oh, favorite or best?
Favorite? Well, both.
Favorite would be Ledley King.
Okay, why Ledley King?
Incredible player. Absolutely brilliant centre half. Obviously meant a lot to us as a local boy who came through the club and obviously never played for anybody else. Although I think in Ledley's case, it's worth saying he only didn't play for anybody else because of his injuries,
Yeah.
because he was good enough to play for anybody.
I always remember
So
people.
fate.
Always remember people saying he would have been better than Sol Campbell if he'd stayed fit.
You've not mentioned him already, have you, Gary? Yeah, look, I believe that would be a biased comment that I'd obviously make, but Ledley was good enough to play
Sorry,
for
Dave.
any. If Ledley hadn't had the injuries, he wouldn't have stayed with us, which is like the irony. So he maybe wouldn't hold the same feeling.
Yeah, just a random thing. Did you watch Sol Campbell on the overlap last week?
Don't be silly. I wouldn't listen to anything that man's got to say, mate.
He was coming out with some real conspiracy theories about leaving Spurs. Anyway, mate, sorry, I interrupted you.
Best would be Gareth Bale. Was unplayable by the time that he'd left, and it was inevitable that he would leave in the summer of 2013. Because I think at that point it was only Messi and Ronaldo were better than him.
Yeah.
He could win games on his own. He was pretty much doing his own compilation of goal of the season reels week after week, and playing in a very average team that which he nearly kind of basically single-handedly got into the top four. So I mean, Gareth Bale would be the best Deadly King favourite.
Harry Kane, would he be up there?
Yeah, Harry Kane would be right up there. He'd be kind of borderline in terms of favourite and best there. I think Ledley just holds a little bit more in the heart, which, to be honest, you can't manufacture that. That's just how you feel, right? Harry would be top 5 comfortably in terms of best I've seen from Spurs. I've been very lucky. We've been very lucky to have some incredible strikers in the 30 years I've gone. And he would comfortably be the best, like, no question about that.
Favourite moment as a Spurs fan?
How long you got, mate? I don't know if my listeners will know this. I've told them this one time I went to Amsterdam. So, yeah, Champions League semi-final.
Yeah.
In Ajax would be better than the 91 Cup final for me, better than the 99 League Cup and 2008 League Cups. Better than beating Arsenal 5-1. That in Amsterdam. I think you could sit here with me in 40 years. I think I'll give you the same answer.
Does the fact you didn't go on to fulfil the job against Liverpool, does that not take anything away from it?
No, not really. I think it's funny. I was talking about this on one of our pods only about a week ago about that final being really weird because both teams had such epic semi-final victories.
Yeah.
As Liverpool beat Barcelona 4-0, having been 3-0 down. So for both teams going into the final, it was like the final couldn't top the semi-final.
It's a bit drab, if I remember rightly.
It was, yeah. I have to say, it's very difficult to put into words how hot it was. It was an incredibly hot evening. That didn't help. And then there was an early goal, and it was always going to be whoever scored first was going to play on the counter.
Yeah.
Liverpool had this incredible tussle with City to try and win the league and remarkably fell short, I think, on 97 points or something stupid. So they were an extremely good side. They got in front. It benefited them. They deserved to win the final. It wasn't a great game. It doesn't live long in the memory at all. So you could say that a little bit. Would Ajax have meant even more if you'd gone on to win the trophy? But I think the point on that night with Ajax is I don't think beating Liverpool would have beat that.
Yeah.
I think the history of winning the Champions League obviously would have.
Yeah.
But in terms of that moment, I knew in that moment I was experiencing one of the best moments of my life. And I knew it. And it would be very difficult to replicate that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just give a story. Were you a fan of the new stadium? Do you think it looks a bit... I've only been once, and I went to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I met up with my mate beforehand. I hadn't seen him in about 20 years, so we got so pissed beforehand in the bar outside. We did get in, but we couldn't find our seats, and I could hardly remember the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing. It's a nice stadium, isn't it?
It's a cracking stadium for a modern build. It doesn't hold the history yet or the feeling that the old stadium could hold. But for a modern stadium, we've done a very, very good job with it. I think they learnt lessons of mistakes that others, such as Wembley, Arsenal with the Emirates, had made with others in terms of like the steepness of the stands, the proximity to the pitch and things like that. And it's kind of, it's more than just a football stadium. It's very unique. If you've been in the home end, it's almost like being in a food market. With this massive long bar. It's very unique to any other football stadium. So they've done a great job with it, but I preferred the old place.
Do you reckon Ange will be out before the end of the season?
When you're posting this out, it might be gone by the time you posted this, mate.
Yeah.
I think he probably will make the end of the season, but I think Tottenham have started their process of replacing him, I think.
Is it just because they're still in the Europa League? I don't really follow the Europa League, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Essentially, yeah. If they weren't, he probably wouldn't be around at the moment. So I think there's also that who do you get at this moment to make it better for the rest of this season is debatable. I think he still has a lot of the players on side, actually. I don't think with certain teams and managers, you can tell it feels like players have down tools. I don't think that's actually the case with our players. I just think systematically it's no longer working anymore. The volume of chances we can see is just way too high. Yes, the injuries is obviously a mitigating factor for a lot. I think the defeat in Alkmaar in the first leg, and obviously we ended up going through, but I was out there, and I think that was the last straw for a lot of people because we'd had 8 days to prepare for that, and it was limp. You're losing to the fourth best team in the Netherlands a couple of days after Arsenal have gone to a better Dutch team and won 7-1. It was quite unacceptable, and I think that made a lot of people behind the scenes at Tottenham think, yeah, maybe this isn't going to work the way we hoped it would. So I think the only way I could see him probably being manager next season now is if he wins the Europa League, or if we have a really good end to the season and we're a bit unlucky, you could say mitigating. But I don't even think it's certain that he'd be manager next year, even if we won the competition. Actually,
sure. So when did you first get into fantasy football, James?
oh, my history on fantasy football is not like many others. Actually, I probably would have taken notice of things like newspaper games, so say
Yeah.
like Sun Dream Team and stuff like that when I was a kid. But my introduction to FPL happened rather by accident. Actually, was when I used to work for bookmakers, and this lad there was a Chelsea fan. Said, "Look, play. Like you've got really good football knowledge and stuff. Like play, try it and stuff."
FPL.
Yeah. So this would have been, I think, 12, 13, I think. So a little over 10 years ago. And I wouldn't say that I took the game seriously at all. I would have never known the FPL community even existed until me and Suj started doing the podcast. So, yeah, very, very chilled out introduction. I think I put in treble Tottenham defence to start with. I've never done that since, I can assure you.
Any early memories stick out?
The Aguero 5 goals, I think.
A lot of people
Newcastle.
Say that one. A lot of people say that one.
Yeah, I think that was one. I remember the wife used to play as well. Well, she still does actually. Although it's pretty much me telling her what to do now. But we both captained him that day.
Yeah.
I think so many had, and it was just the seeing the 50 points. I think it was 50 points he got, wasn't it? It was quite incredible. You don't often get 5-goal hauls in the Premier League, so to captain it as well feels like a unique achievement. So probably that, I would say. Probably the Aguero one is. I think a lot of people say that, don't they?
Yeah, a lot of people do. It's one of mine as well because it was my first season. I mean, despite the fact I'm a Newcastle supporter, I probably should have been more annoyed. But okay, so moving on a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna ask. I've got for this section where we're going to talk a bit about your content creation experiences. I've got like some Planet FPL specific questions, but I'll kind of pick them up as we go amongst what I usually generally ask. So I'll start by asking, when did you basically decide to become a content creator? What inspired this? Because if I'm right, you were employed with Suj and then he asked you to make a channel. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say it went down as far as a channel. Suj had, before he knew me, had tried to do an FPL podcast with a few other people.
Oh, okay.
Which is a little known secret. And I think that's going back to around about 2014 or so. Didn't work. They recorded a couple, didn't like it, whatever. And I'd won the Work Mini League. Ironically, had my best FPL season. I finished 21k. And actually, I think it was 7k going into game week 37, I think.
Okay.
But at that point, I refused to have Tottenham players.
Oh, wow.
And that was the game week 37 where Harry Kane got 5.
Oh, good.
So somewhat destroyed me. I think he was the most popular captain.
Leicester.
That's correct, yeah. Leicester. He got 4 at Leicester, didn't he, to win the Golden Boot?
Yeah.
So that destroyed me at the end because then he got another hat-trick in game week 38 at Hull as well. So, but Suja said, "Oh, you're really good at FPL," and he kind of picked up my football knowledge was decent, and I was passionate about it anyway. He said, "Want to do a podcast?" Sure. I thought it was a one-off. We'll do another one next week. And honestly, it's a boring story. It just spiraled from there and just kept going. And we were probably quite unique in the space that we had the podcast out in the space before we started advertising it. It was only after we'd done sort of 10 or 12 podcasts that we kind of started a Twitter account and these sort of things. But I don't know how we thought people were going to find us originally, but I don't even know if that was the original intention. I'm sure it was, because Suj thinks a lot about money. Hi, boss. But yeah, we probably did things in a very unique order from that perspective. And then by the end of the year, it was, do you want to do like a review podcast and a preview podcast? And then, yeah, we're here now doing, I have to keep a track of the amount of content that's going out a lot.
He must have really wanted to make a channel then, if he sort of like put several attempts.
I think so. I think he was interested. He was as much fascinated in the idea of podcasts themselves than specifically wanted a fantasy football podcast. It just so happened that he saw, I guess, a bit of talent in me, and that this was probably the right platform. And rather than just doing another generic football podcast, back in 2017, there weren't infinite amounts of podcasts. So I think if we'd have started now, we might have chose a completely different theme or genre or something like that. At the time, there wasn't a huge number of FPL pods out in that space. So we was probably just in time from that perspective.
What were those early experiences like? Content.
Oh, terrible. I remember shaking like a leaf the first time I did the podcast. Yeah, absolutely. There's no one in the room other than just me and Serge and this tiny little mic sitting in between us. No camera or anything like that. And being very nervous about it. And once you've done so many, you forget all the how many people's watching and these sort of things that might influence you and make you nervous. You just forget about it completely. So, it took us a long time to, I think, find out who we wanted to be. I think we spent most of the first season dabbling in, were we going to be kind of like clowns, if it was going to be like a comedy route, if we were going to be like go into data. Like we did podcasts in different formats to find what we liked, what we felt right. So there was a lot of, I guess, investigative or just trying things out in the first season. By the end of it, we kind of found what we wanted to be. And I think where we were relatable was ultimately with football fans.
Yeah.
We were football fans first who went to games. Such had a season ticket at West Ham at the time and found that was probably our place. And we shouldn't aim to be experts. It's a word I hate of any particular data field or anything like that. And just be ourselves.
I remember listening to one of my favourite ones you did was the whole, people's poll on what's an expert. You did that a couple of years ago. And
oh, yeah. Went down well, that actually.
Yeah. I was looking through your channel beforehand, doing a bit of research for this, and I noticed that it took you, like, I might be not exactly right on this, but it took you like a couple of years before you sort of hit 1,000 views on YouTube. I was just wondering, like, did that frustrate you at the time, and what do you think happened? Was there anything in particular that suddenly took the channel off to the next level, if that makes sense?
I think with us and YouTube, we didn't start on YouTube till we were well into season 2.
Right.
We were very much just a podcast. That's what we were. So we'd probably done, I don't know, 100 odd podcasts before it was like, should we be putting this on YouTube? And I was quite reluctant about it, actually, because I still very much see us as a podcast.
Okay.
I think once you start giving people the visual, you get treated differently and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I very much saw us as an audio platform. And I think change is something just generally we're resistant to, whatever that is in life. So we had this nice audio platform that was growing really, really strongly. And then we started YouTube. So we've got to a point where we've got a really good number of audio listeners. Now we're starting YouTube. And you don't really want to move the audio listeners to YouTube. So you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So we've got the consistency on what we're doing. But we've also got a product that arguably isn't right for YouTube, because our podcast can be quite long. You talk an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And I think if you're trying to find something new, the longer you are, the more it can put people off. So what am I going to try these guys out for? I've got to watch them for 90 minutes to kind of get to know them and see if I like it or not. That feels easier to do it on an audio platform, because an audio platform, you're not expecting to listen to something for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You're expecting something longer. So I think we were very much set for audio. So YouTube being a slow process was very understandable. I think we always tried to chase a path as well as not being clickbaity. We never went down a route of let's do clickbait titles to try and increase our views and stuff like that. I think we always had a feeling that if people liked us, it would grow
Do you,
naturally
do you
in
think that's
time.
changed over time? Because I mean, you've got like Black Box and some really long content on YouTube. Do you think people's attitudes
Very,
have changed?
very much so. But I'd also say, I mean, Black Box as a marker, incredible. But we're also very well known to start with.
Yeah.
So me and Sudge are doing it in a space where we're just not known, whereas Mark's like is the godfather of FPL, right? So
Yeah.
it's natural that just instantly people are going to gravitate to watching what they do. So a little bit different, but I get your point. And I think people's habits have changed a lot since COVID.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the people who did just listen to the audio of us back in 2017, their habits changed in 2020. Was like, well, I watch this now, and I can. So I think that changed.
Yeah.
A lot of people's habits. Even I'd certainly know it changed my habits as well.
Yeah. Sure. So how have those experiences changed over time in a content creation sense?
Well, we do a lot more than what we used to do. So
Yeah.
COVID itself again changed things. So I started trying things like the deadline stream. I got involved with the Champman FPL community and their live streams and doing this Soccer Saturday version of their game basically on YouTube.
Oh, is that
So
during the fantasy
during the
football
pandemic,
manager?
yeah. So
Yeah.
that was great. I loved doing them. It was so good, but it wasn't sustainable for me to carry on doing them once football
Sure.
restarted, etc. It was brilliant to do at the time. Loved it. Brought so much enjoyment to my life as well. I know it was helpful to other people, but it was helpful to me to do those streams as well and have something to properly prepare and focus for. And it's quite a bit of pressure when suddenly, obviously, it's two of you talking, and now I've gone to a format where I'm doing 2.5 hour live streams. I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah.
And you can't see what's on the other side, but the engagement was always really good with the community and stuff. So a lot changed from there. So then from that, I had the confidence to start doing my own deadline streams for FPL. And I think we realized there was a lot more we needed to focus a little bit more on what was happening with YouTube, because there was clearly a community there that was interested in what we were doing. And we'd already by that point gone to doing shows every day of the week. COVID allowed us to launch Patreon and then essentially just double that and say, okay, we're still doing all this for free, but if you want more, there's here on Patreon. You can support obviously what we do within our own community now as well. So COVID was a huge changer for me in an ironic way, although it was horrible for everyone. We might not be here now if it wasn't for that, I think, because ultimately we would have had to make a decision to go, right, we're putting so much into this. Do you ultimately want to monetize it or not? And COVID allowed us the time to be able to save up on the money and obviously invest in me going full time to do the product, and also gave us the opportunity to see if we could double the workload of content we was doing. And obviously I go full time on it. Sudge's still got all these other business ventures going on, so he's not. And obviously now we have like Clayton, who's regularly involved. We've got Nico, our video editor, works on the YouTube stuff and some of the social media management of that as well. So still developing and growing, I hope.
Yeah. So I had a couple of questions about it. So I know Sudge moved to, was it Portugal at the start of this season? Has that, I mean, how did you feel when you first heard that? And do you think it's affected the channel at all? I know he still makes videos, but am I right to say less than he did?
Yes, but I think it was going that way anyway. Sudge isn't as passionate about football as, say, I am, and he'd openly admit that.
He misses the deadline half the time, did he?
He hasn't missed one all season, mate.
Oh.
So, yeah, I know he's not happy when other people do it because he feels like they're stealing his thunder. Although, as I keep saying, when you got 5 free transfers, we'd probably never know if you missed one anyway. You just tell everyone that you rolled, right? You can get away with it a lot easier now. Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, he made a decision for him and his family, which is the most important thing, right? So there's no way you could be unhappy about it.
Bit nicer weather.
Ultimately, I think we would both enjoy the face-to-face interaction. When you're on a kind of computer-facing screen, you've got to time a little bit better how you queue for each other and stuff like that. Whereas when you're in the same room, if you've got the mics in the same place, etc., you don't have to worry about one speaking over the other. And is it going to download correctly if we're both speaking at the same time? You can have more of an interaction and banter a little bit more when you're in the same place, and it's more enjoyable. You can physically see people's reactions and stuff as well. And we were blessed that we had the studio upstairs, I'm actually literally pointing at the moment, like you should know that it's upstairs. It is literally above my head, which obviously with Suj not being here, we don't use hardly now, unfortunately. But Suj had to make the decision that was right for him and his family. And I think he's very happy about it, and therefore I'm very happy for him. I wouldn't say no, it's not impacted as well. At first, I was pretty nervous about it because we'd put so much time to regularly recording together in the studio.
Yeah.
But I think it still works. Ultimately, most people don't really give a shit where you are or what you look like. They're more interested in, is it interesting what I'm listening to or watching to? So ultimately, whether in the same room or whether we're on Zoom or something else, the content and what's being spoken is still the same, and that's what matters most.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Clayton has been a great addition to the channel, but I was just wondering, what was it like having a new person on the channel? Because I guess it was you and Sudley's baby for so long. Like, was that process difficult to begin with? Or?
It's change, isn't it? I mean, you're nervous about it. I wouldn't shy away from saying it to Clayton, but it's like it's different, and he's not Suj. The worst thing he could do was try and be Suj.
Yeah.
He has stupid mannerisms quite a lot, like Suj, but otherwise he's a completely different human being. His passion for football is much greater than Suj's.
Okay.
But in Suj's, obviously, in terms of his life experience, etc., is better. Clayton's younger than both myself and Suj as well. So, yeah, I think you are nervous about it. Is it going to work? And obviously, is it well received? Because at the point that Clayton comes on board, we've already done, I don't know, but well over 1,000 podcasts, at least, maybe even 2,000. So to bring something in new, as said earlier, people don't generally like change. I think people have warmed to Clayton.
Awesome. So our next question is, and I've got a couple again in it here specific to Planet FPL. What are the positives and negatives of being a content creator? Maybe you could start with the positives, and I'm guessing your community. I had a look at your Patreon before we started, and I think it's one of the biggest on FPL Patreons. You've got like 1,500 members over that. I'm guessing that's one of the positives, but just positives in general.
I get to talk about football all day long, mate. It's the dream, isn't it? I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. That's the biggest positive. I get up every day and feel inspired to do what I do and keep providing the content, which is the priority for me, is always making sure the content can be as good as possible. And we put out a lot of content, but I want it to be as good as it can be at the same time, rather than just content for the sake of content. Sometimes you do feel like that, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Feel like I'm doing something for the sake of it. I'd always rather find a different angle and try something new where possible. So huge positives. I essentially choose when I work. So Suj knows I'm not taking the piss, but at the time recording to you, I'll finish with you. I'm going to go in for a bit. I've got a podcast at 8 o'clock tonight. That's my choice, working with the correspondents. There's that. I get to have regular contact with a fan of every football club through our correspondence. So I feel like I've got a true insight to how they're feeling very regularly about their clubs. And we all know the stories of the Uniteds and Liverpools and how they feel, but how does the Leicester and Ipswich fans feel at the moment and stuff like that? I feel like I've got contacts on all of that. So I mean, it's an endless list of positives. I'm very, very lucky. I always feel that regularly.
Are there any negatives?
Not many. Repetitive questions. Particularly when you feel like, and I have to remind myself sometimes that, James, you put out roughly 10 podcasts a week. You can't expect anyone to listen to all of them. But quite often I get a question, I've just covered that on the podcast.
Is that like in the chat?
Can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. Repetitive questions on the deadline streams drive me bonkers, but I tend to just take the piss out of it myself now. It's going to happen, isn't it? People want their own kind of agendas and questions covered. That's fine. I think probably if there is a negative, and I'm trying to fix it in my own mind now, but I find it very difficult to switch off.
Right.
I'm in my mind, I'm never not working.
Okay, so that's specific to Planet FPL, not just thinking about FPL, or is it about both?
No, nothing to do with my own FPL. I mean the content. Okay. For me, I probably have probably about half hour a week. I feel like I'm truly like not working completely.
Right.
Other than times where I'm completely dedicated to my son are like the exceptionals. But for me, I do the deadline stream and that's the end of the week. Nothing else can happen. and I have that half-hour period where it's like the week's done, and then it will last about half hour, and I'm just thinking about Monday straight away.
Yeah.
That happens to me quite a lot. So it could be finish a deadline stream 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, right? Peace, relax. By 11:30, I'm thinking, what am I doing for a podcast on Tuesday? That's a problem that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying it's necessarily a negative, but therefore I find it difficult to switch off. I think
Yeah.
there's always something for me with what I'm doing now. It feels like there's something else I can do
If you
rather than
weren't
just put my feet up, relax.
if you weren't enjoying it so much, though, do you think you'd feel that?
Oh yeah. Please don't feel sorry for me in any way, right? This is all in enjoyment,
Yeah.
and it's because I enjoy it. I struggle to switch off for
That's
it.
what I was thinking.
The content creation side of it is almost, it might be a bit of a naughty word to use, but it's almost like an addiction to me now. A little bit.
I've
Getting it right, and I think many of us can relate to that in the sense of working too hard for something sometimes.
yeah.
It's not that I don't get rewarded. I do get rewarded very well. But I think we've all had that. You go in from work, you don't necessarily just switch off.
No.
Even though it's not work time now. I think many of us can relate to that. And that's me quite a little bit. Plus, a lot of my work I'm doing in my house with my family in the next room.
Yeah.
And then I just step out, and then it's back into normal life. So for me, I am able to switch off. It's more the late night stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Brain starts going, what am I doing Tuesday? What am I doing Thursday? What can I plan? And if there's emptiness, like I don't watch much on TV anymore, just football basically. And I feel like I need to get back to that sort of things.
Yeah.
And have a bit more normality like most humans.
So I like to think there might be some young or newish content creators who watch these games. What advice would you give anyone wanting to start out or early on in their FPL content creation journey?
Stick at it, very much so. I think you've got to be prepared. Like all of us would have been through it, where you're going to at some point not be happy with the views or the subscribers.
Yeah.
You have to persevere. Suj said this at the first, in fact, not the first live show we did, the first live show we did outside London. We did a live show in Manchester just before COVID. And Suj said at that, he said something like, if you're starting out new, come back and talk to me when you've done 50. Like that kind of minimum commitment to podcasting or some form of creation. You can't do 5 videos and think that your channel's going to blow up.
Yeah.
It might, but it's extremely unlikely. So you've got to have perseverance. But I think the biggest one I'd say to people is you've got to do something that you like.
Definitely.
If you don't like your own content, you can't expect others to like it. You can imitate what others do, but very importantly, be yourself and do something that you enjoy. If you enjoy what you're doing, others will find it easier to enjoy listening or watching to you. So it's got to most importantly be something you enjoy. Don't get into it if you think, this is going to be the buck that's going to carry me to a working life or something.
Would you say
it's unlikely.
Would you say as well, David, it's not just about, I like FPL, therefore I'm going to make FPL videos. Has to be a style you like and stuff as well, doesn't it? Because there's lots of different types of videos you can make in.
Absolutely. And I mean, our space now in the FPL community, like so many phenomenal content creators who all have their kind of own niche with what they're doing. And I think the ones that do best probably really enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
Would be kind of a standout. So you've got to enjoy it. If you're kind of stuck there and you're like, I want to do it, but I don't know what I want to do, you're probably going to struggle to start with. Now, bear in mind what I said, that me and Suj probably did a whole season's worth of podcasts before we knew how we truly wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But we did have the perseverance at that time to go through it. So it's okay to know that you're gonna make mistakes within reason, and you will ultimately have bits of content you'll cringe and look back on and think, oh god, that was terrible or whatever. So perseverance and ultimately finding what you really enjoy would be the important things for me.
Yeah, definitely. I've deleted, I think, 3 of my videos that I made now after going back and going, what were you thinking? So yeah, I said to you before we started recording, I've got quite a few specific questions on Planet FPL, so I'm just going to go through them. I've got them here. So the first one, to my knowledge, I mean, for anyone who's not watched Planet FPL, first of all, I'd say definitely do. But it's kind of a hybrid of a mixture of football content and FPL content, isn't it? It's the only channel I think that does that, really. So why did you choose to mix it up like that? And do you have any idea if the FPL content or the football content's more popular, or is it all just come together? Do you think?
Ultimately, we're an FPL podcast, so the FPL content will be the most popular. But obviously, the more you grow, you come to learn and understand what your listeners and your followers like, and you can ascertain that just from the sort of questions you get. You know, we began to find that I think people wanted to know more about how I felt about Tottenham, for example, and it wasn't laced like an FPL question. And we began to realize this sort of thing. Like I said, we realized towards the end of season 1, what separated us from others was, well, we go to the games all the time, so we should, I don't want to say play on it, but that's who we are. So let's be that. Ultimately, football fans first, and there's a little bit of a Tottenham West Ham rivalry, so you can obviously play off that from a banter perspective as much. Can't banter each other at the moment, both bloody shit. But I think it took us that while to understand that. And then once we knew that people were interested in more, and we tried to push the boundaries on a few things. Like, I think one of the standout pods we did was a podcast we did on Bury, when Bury Football Club went bust.
Oh yeah.
And you couldn't be further removed from FPL in terms of football comments. There's no way you can drop FPL into that. And the feedback on it was massive, how much people enjoyed it. Don't dare say we might have picked up a couple of people from Bury listened to it, but ultimately it was listened by 99% of the FPL community, who really enjoyed finding out about, probably didn't enjoy it because it's quite a dark podcast, but finding out more about this football club who died.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't happen. And I felt really passionate about it at the time. Like, a football club shouldn't die. It's stuff we take for granted, going and watching our team. And we felt passionate enough that we should talk about it. Yeah. And our listeners, I think, enjoyed it. And then at that point, right, people were interested in more. We started doing Tottenham and West Ham specific only podcasts, again, not relatable to FPL. And then you got Sky Fantasy Football, correspondents involved.
And you got a different, you mentioned them earlier, you got a different correspondent from every club, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that come about?
It's all 20 and a few from the Championship still as well. To be honest, that came about as an idea, just one of them things. We used to have ideas and we wouldn't think twice about them. So I already got this an idea. Do you think this will work yet? Do it. And we were like that. And I remember just going into Suj's office one lunchtime and saying, I'm going to get us 20 correspondents. Right. And he went, okay. Because I think he was like, well, good luck with that, you dick. As in, that sounds like quite a lot of work. And it started from an idea of, I wanted people in the community to have a link, as in someone they could feel like was a representative within the FPL community. They could say, okay, I want to ask the West Ham fan West Ham questions specific, and that's their club. I was conscious of doing it that we'd have people from different spaces. We'd have people that would go to all the games, and we'd also have people that were even outside the UK to give a different slant. So you've got eyes, these are from elsewhere. So like Stephen Toomey lived in America, our Watford correspondent. Ben Tomo Thompson also lives in America, our Sheffield United correspondent. Our current Crystal Palace correspondent, Roy McLaughlin-Dowds, now in South Africa. Simon Bibby, our Newcastle correspondent, also gone to America. So I think it's not just about, I didn't want it to be everyone's the same. Oh, you go to all the home and away games. We have people like that, like Johnny Pringle, Man City, Sam Murray, Brighton, who do go to a lot of the games. But I thought it was important to get different perspectives on that. And I would be honest, at the start, it was also, who do you know?
Okay.
So like, who in the Twitter community is a Wolves fan? Well, I only knew Bradley Parker, and he's turned out to be one of the loveliest guys I've ever met, right? He's a super lad, Bradley. And I've met Bradley before games when I've gone to Wolves away and stuff. So some work out lucky, some didn't. But then ultimately, it wanted it to be a link. The idea originally was that they'd perhaps contribute some articles on our site and stuff. And then after a while, I realized that we could do much more with them. And quickly, this idea of Clash of the Correspondents was formed for the next year. This idea of having a correspondent from each club come on, preview a game. And they've got better insight than I can offer my best on. I think the first one we did was Villa Bournemouth. At the time, it was Adam Hopcroft and Neil Grover, who's still with us. Well, that was one of the first anyway. And it's like, these Villa have just come back up. Bournemouth have not been around forever. These guys can give way better advice than I can give on these clubs currently. So I think Clash of Correspondence was a very unique idea. People regularly say that was a really clever idea. it's not really imitated or comparable. And I try and layer it out where all the guys will get like 4 or 5 appearances a season on the pod. It's not just Liverpool every week, for example. Give everyone their fair shot to have their say.
So, my favourite thing on Planet FPL is the People's Poll. I think I already mentioned my favourite one was the FPL expert. I was just wondering, like, who came up with that idea, or how did that idea come about? And is there like a favourite one for you?
Oh, wow. I think just literally earlier today, I recorded our 159th People's Poll with Clays. And to be honest, we only do about one a month now.
Oh, okay.
But the original idea was when we decided we wanted to...
It used to be weekly, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But there's other things. I kind of leave that one open a little bit more now. So, I mean, even this year, we've introduced a new concept. I'm going to do a little bit more of around Game Week 30, 31, a concept called Chip Talk. Okay. We focus on chip specifics to a specific game week, i.e. Game Week 31 wildcard, for example. And I think that sits better in the space. So we'd obviously do our game week review and people are like, where's the Game Week 31 chat? Okay, have this 45-minute chat just on wildcarding in 31. But when we originally moved to doing a podcast every week, we wanted a regular fixed schedule. So game review pod on a Monday, game week preview pod on a Friday. We started playing Sky Fantasy Football. So we felt that fit in best. So we have fantasy focus Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Clash of Correspondence of Thursday. The reason we wanted to put out on a Thursday was it allowed me to record with the guys kind of any point Monday to Wednesday. And we just put it out on a Thursday. And said it was something for the Tuesday. And we went, well, why don't we come up with a few topics every week and let the people decide what they want us to talk about. And it was those pods that obviously kind of really opened up the idea of this doesn't have to be FPL specific. Yeah. And obviously people can see the vote. And if they go, well, none of these are for me, well, you don't listen to this one. You can skip it. It's always about trying to give people choice. I get that, you hear that feedback sometimes about what's this got to do with FPL? That's fine. There's plenty of other FPL content out there. I'm giving you something different as a choice. Because I think we also learned that some people feel like there's an elitism in football content, i.e. if you want to hear a discussion about Trent Alexander-Arnold going to Real Madrid, if you go on mainstream television, you're only going to get former punt players and stuff like that covering it. Yeah. It's like, well, what are the guys who talk about FPL? What do they think about it, for example? So it opened up that sort of thing. And I can't remember what the original question was.
Yeah, Gary. Your favourite one, mate.
Yeah. Basically, I just disguised that because I couldn't think.
You just say the expert one if you can't think of it.
I'll tell you what. I think it was a people's poll. I'll be surprised if it's not. I say favourite in a loose term, but I think probably the most important one I did for me personally was on the Y word. Oh, okay. Was about Tottenham's fans' use of the Y word. Yeah. And why I felt that and I used the word myself for 20 odd years, but why it should stop. And it still carries on. And I understand why it carries on. But I think that one is a really interesting podcast for people. There'll be people going, what's the Y word? Search the Y word on Planet FPL, you'll find it.
Yeah. I remember David Baddiel did he write a book about that or something as well?
Yeah.
So next thing I had down, I know you said you listened to the one with Mark Southerns, my interview with him. He said he was basically, I think he was in hospital, and he heard your 24-hour deadline stream, and that's what inspired him to come back to FPL content. I mean, obviously that's a great, must be
endorsement. Yeah,
a great endorsement. But
very humbling.
I've just got written in my notes here what WTF. Basically, why
WTF? I'm never doing it again. Don't ask me.
Why did you do it? I'm guessing it's a charity, and how did it go?
It's the worst day of my life. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was great, but I was not very well for a few days afterwards. Again, it was one of them things. It became like should we do a 24-hour stream? Yeah, let's do a 24-hour stream. And because that's how we were at the time.
When was it? So
it was during COVID.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it was also, we hadn't seen each other from COVID to, I think, doing the 24-hour stream. Pretty sure that's right. So we had to have all the social distancing in place and all that jazz. But then something that seemed like a good idea was then weeks worth of preparation in terms of who to come on and at what times and what we're going to talk about. And I didn't want it to, once it's like, okay, excuse me, we're going to do it. Like, I just don't want it to be 24 hours of us on a camera. I've never watched back the final quarter of it because we had to break it down into 4 quarters because you couldn't stream live on YouTube for longer than 6 hours.
I watched a couple of sets. I'm not going to pretend I watched 24 hours, and you got like different people coming in from the FPL community, like on a screen behind you and such, basically, the part I saw.
Pretty much, yeah. Like every half hour, we'd have someone else coming on. I didn't watch the final 6 hours of it because I was drunk as off my nut. I started drinking at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a good idea. I wouldn't do that now. I know, FPL have a beer on that. No, I don't think I'd have a drink if I did it again.
Not 24 hours.
That was good. Beer. It was powerful. We raised, I think it was £6,000 in the end.
Awesome.
For the NHS, which obviously at the time was obviously hugely important to people. And I think it felt nice that the community felt like they were doing something. We had so many people from the FPL community come onto the pod. And Mark, if he'd have been more involved at the time, certainly would have been one of them. I'm sure he probably would have said that himself. So it's lovely to obviously have Mark as our Nottingham Forest correspondent now as well. Like, the community was going to give me absolutely no choice on that. And I know Mark wanted to do it as well anyway. So it's fantastic. I wouldn't do it again though. I don't advise it. It's not a clever idea. But yeah, good.
Awesome stuff.
I want to do it again. No chance. The answer is no before anyone thinks. I say that all the time. Just no.
So I've got this one noted down. Often, I don't know. I haven't heard people say this so much recently, but particularly when you guys were, I guess, starting up, or you'd been around for a couple of years, a lot of people would refer to Planet FPL as the FPL content creators' content.
I have heard this.
So I was just thinking, why do you think they say that, and do you take it as a compliment?
Oh yeah. It's only a compliment. I certainly don't take any insult from that. I think it's let's listen to Planet FPL and see what James says, and then let's use that in our content. Is imitation the best form of flattery and stuff like that. I think that's the theory that a lot of people think might go on a little bit, which also sounds a bit arsey when you say that. Oh, people copying me. I think it's more what we do particularly on a Monday gives a nice, good overview of everybody, and people know quickly where they can. We'll do the games in order. So if you want to bet on Forest and it's the 7th game, you know roughly where you're going to find it in the audio. Yeah. Okay, they're doing game 6. Okay, it's coming up soon. So I think it's easy for people to find the overall thoughts. That particular podcast kind of has a package of everything laced into it and coverage it. And I guess pretty well respected, I think. I don't think if you don't like a content, you don't like the content. There's no real reason to massively dislike what we do. We would only want to work with people like yourselves and praise the work that you and others are doing in terms of their own content. There's no beef between content creators. So even if people were kind of, oh, James said that, but I'm not going to say James said that. Like, I don't have a problem with it anyway. I would only take it as a compliment. So I think it's a little bit of that. Yeah, it's probably, they're not, I suppose people don't come to us for data or anything like that, right? There's brilliant data podcasts out there. Yeah. People don't come to us for brilliant YouTube visuals or anything like that. There's much better people in the space doing that. We're probably the cover everything kind of. Yeah. And like I said, if we'll cover like Trent going to Real Madrid if he goes and stuff like that. We won't just focus just on the FPL side of things.
And tied into that question, but a bit more specific to yourself. I know, basically, it's particularly at this time of year when there's all the doubles and blanks around. You and Ben Krellin are always sort of lauded as the double game week experts, and I know you do a lot of work, particularly in terms of saying where you think fixtures are going to come in. I was just gonna, I should have read my notes. Thank you on behalf of the community for doing that, but I was just wondering, can you explain the process you used to predict that, and how long does it take you? Because I can imagine it could be quite time consuming.
No,
not
okay. Really. No, I think I probably, my relationship would probably be quite different from, say, Ben's. Ben's incredibly clever with the way he works things out, and
we're
not the only ones. Ian Parron is a name I'd regularly shout as absolutely phenomenal in terms of understanding TV selections and how that might work. And that's particularly important actually now with blanks and doubles and understanding what fixture can go where. Talon Nadeem, Lego Money, so many others, great minds on how this works. But I was always fascinated with the concept, I think, quite naturally, because if Tottenham had a game postponed, I wanted to know when it was going to be played.
Yeah, good point.
So in my infancy, I wanted to know, right, hang on. So if we're not playing that week, this week's available, that week's available. So I was looking at these things when I was young, even though it didn't matter because my dad would take me to the game anyway. I just wanted to know, oh, shit, we might have to play Arsenal, Chelsea in a row if it's that week. So it was always something like with Tottenham that I'd always looked at anyway. So then when it came to looking at it from an FPL lens, it all felt natural for me. It was just rather than looking at one team, I'm now looking at 20 teams. And actually, the more teams you look at, the easier it is actually to piece the bits of the puzzle together.
Because if that team's not playing, it means that team can't be playing there, and it.
Yeah, I think once you've got a grasp on it, you've got a grasp on it. And I know most people find it quite difficult actually, but I think it's just a lot of it to me seems like common sense.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, it is worth saying, I try and say it all the time when we do the chip pods, this won't be what the blanks and doubles are. We can only project it based on how it currently is. It will never work out exactly like this. It's never 100% right until you get to like the semi-final stage.
You use the odds to predict the fixtures, do you?
In projections, yeah. I mean, example would be at the time of recording, Aston Villa are projected to get to the FA Cup final and Tottenham are projected to get to the Europa League final. Right, well, Aston Villa have got an away game in the cup quarter final when their away form's horrendous. I realise it's against a championship team, but it's not to say they'd beat a Premier League team in the semi-final at a neutral venue. And I watch Tottenham every week, and we shouldn't be favourites to get to Europa League final. I can see that with my eyes. But I'll still follow that line.
Yeah.
In terms of the projections, then there's the knock-on impact of, ironically, those two teams due to play each other in 37. Can't be in that midweek because Tottenham playing Europa League and the final, and then it's just knock on from there.
Yeah.
It's about piecing the dots. Yeah, I find you just need a kind of a piece of the story to start with, and then the cards will generally fall into place from there in terms of what you think will happen.
Sounds like a puzzle.
Then the Premier League will do something random and stupid that cocks it all up, basically.
Yeah,
all the theory goes out the window.
They do seem to be releasing game week deadlines really at strange times. Like the one with the assistant manager, was it game week 24 when they announced just not great. So last two questions asked in this section, James, are a bit more fun. I like to think of them as. First of all, how did you come up with the channel name Planet FPL?
Oh, that's all Sudge's work.
Okay.
I think I probably wouldn't have liked it at first from memory. I'm obviously used to it now.
Yeah.
But I think I'd have thought, I want something better than that. Like, I think the best one in terms of name, truthfully, I think it's Who Got the Assist.
Yeah, I like that name.
I think that's genius in terms of a name. I don't know if that would have been Tom or Nick who originally came up with that, but just think that's an absolute genius name for, a podcast, essentially, what they were first and foremost. Planet FPL. That's something you get like in a kid's book or something, isn't it? I didn't like it at first, truthfully, but I've got used to it now. Like, there's Planet Football and there's other Planet things. I think the Premier League even launched something called Planet something, didn't they? So it's all right.
If we went back in time and you could redo it, would you name it something else? And if so, what would you have named it?
Well, if I could have thought something better, I suppose I probably would have at the time, Gary, and I didn't, right? So I failed.
You're slagging Sergio off, but basically you couldn't have.
No, I mean, there's so many good names and concepts that people have come up with for podcast stars. You still see ones crop up new now, and I think, how have you come up with that? And no one else has mentioned it for all this time. Like well done. No, I never thought of anything better, Gary, so I failed.
The weirdest one about when I've asked this one is Let's Talk Andy said he hates the channel name, but I think that's the perfect. I think it's the perfect channel name. Let's Talk FPL. I mean, it literally is. It's like the old Ron Seal, what it says on the tin, isn't it?
And it's perfect for Andy. It fits with him as the king of YouTube. So I surprised. I suppose it's possibly an uncomfortable conversation for many people to kind of assess their own content. I guess maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I do. So final question in this section is I usually guess the answer to this. I'm going to say this one's a definite yes. Have you ever been recognised out on the street as by a random person as James from Planet FPL?
Yeah, it was an amusing one with this guy following me around Mothercare years ago.
Sounds weird.
And I thought it was a bit dodgy. Well, my son was only like a couple of weeks old at the time. I was like, I think this guy might be following me. It turned out to be lovely. I think the wife was like, hang on, what's going on here? Someone actually knows who you are. And that hadn't been long after we'd put ourselves on YouTube, so the faces were kind of out there and stuff then. I wouldn't say it happens that often. And I think I've had people say to me, oh, I saw you on the street and I didn't say anything. And I think you can, but I also get it, like if I'm with my son, it probably feels a bit weird for people.
There's a time it's suitable and time not, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, absolutely. But I always say, and it does happen quite a bit, most away games, someone will say hello to me now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And my dad's a bit like, who's that? And I'm just listening to Planet FPL, mate. And someone, guy called Steve, did it at Fulham last week. I hadn't met before. He was like, hey, James from Planet FPL. And the interesting bit I always think is, it must be a really difficult conversation to like approach because it's always the same. Are you James from Planet FPL? And in my head, I'm thinking, you already know that, don't you? when you're asking that question, because you listen to me enough, you know that I'm probably going to be at the gate. It's a good chance it's me. I don't know if people see that I'm 5'4" and think, Christ, James from Planet FPL is a bit shorter than I thought. Could be, maybe.
Do you ever think like, I don't know, you're not in the right mood and you just like put on an accent and go, no, mate, I don't know what that is.
No, not at all, because like you're pushing people away who obviously presumably enjoy what you do. I mean, most cases. I've touch wood, I've never really walked into a dickhead. Oh, you James from Planet FPL, I think your content's shit. Like, it's not happened yet, fortunately. I'm sure it probably will at some point. But people only want to be friendly and nice. And to be honest, most people say, oh, I don't want to take your time. Do you want to have a drink or something? Like, you taking the time to come and say hello to me, I can give you 10 minutes of my time. It's no problem. I think my dad's at first was a bit like, this is a bit weird. Steward stopped me outside Stamford Bridge going in the ground last year and was like, oh yeah, James from Planet FPL. And I'm expecting to get felt up like going into a football stadium, which is commonplace before anyone gets really concerned. Make sure I'm not taking smoke bombs in the stadium and stuff like that. Oh yeah, hey, James from Planet FPL. My dad was like, what's going on here? So my dad thinks I'm some sort of hero, which is cool. Great. My wife thinks it's stupid. My mum's like, he was always going to be a hero. It's fine. And my son just doesn't understand. So yeah, it happens. It happens not that often, but most of the time it happens to me with Tottenham now. And I would say to people specifically as well, if you see me at Tottenham, come and say hello.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to, particularly in that environment.
There's a lot of Spurs FPL content. You've got Sam from FPL Family, you've got the above average boys. There's quite a few Spurs FPL fans, isn't there?
Yeah, we're about.
So we'll move on to the next section now. Of the interview where we talk a little bit about FPL and mental health. Just a reminder, if you're still listening at this point of the video, please like to help get the video out there. Please subscribe to help me get up to 700 subscribers. Thank you so much if you do this. It means the world to me. And also, please check out channel memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. So, way I usually phrase this question, James, is to say, basically, has FPL ever affected your mental health and mood? And I don't know if you can try and do this. Perhaps firstly think back to before you were an FPL content creator, or if you can separate it to just actually FPL itself, and then as a content creator, sort of secondly, if that makes sense.
Excuse me. I think probably pre-FPL, no. It wasn't serious enough for me. Like, I never really kind of realised...
Pre-content creation?
Pre-content creation, yeah. Like, I actually probably wouldn't have realised probably even a couple of years into doing content creation, the fact that I was sitting at 7K going into game week 37 was quite good.
Really?
I probably didn't even realise what it meant at that point. And obviously, it was less players then, I get that. I think probably a little bit in the first couple of years, because you think it's the dreaded, I've got to go on the podcast and talk about the 29-point game week. Whereas once you've done that 5, 10, 20 times, because it will happen to everybody at some point in that season.
Gets easier.
In a season, yeah. Well, nearly everybody. You think, well, I've done this before, right? I know what this looks like and I know what it feels like. So was probably at first, it's like, oh, people are going to judge me if I'm shit. And then you realise it's like, well, actually, James, people are going to judge you as being shit at FPL because largely you are quite shit at FPL. So it doesn't matter. So therefore, it probably doesn't impact me in the same way. I would probably be more on the content side of things would be more of an impact for me. You're going to get criticism. It's kind of the nature of the beast, and people try and get personal about stuff. I just think
is that like Twitter?
It's so unnecessary.
Is that Twitter?
To be honest, YouTube is the worst.
Really? Comments?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The people can be right horrible and arsey on there. They're not so much. I think we're quite lucky from that perspective. But some of the comments, particularly a lot of the bigger individual YouTube guys like Oscar, Harry, and Andy and stuff like that. And I think some of the comments you see, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I don't know what possesses people at that point to think, I know what I'm going to do with my day. Yeah. I'm going to go into this channel and abuse this person because this, that, and the other. But why? You don't like something? Press it. It's easy on YouTube. Skip and just go to the next channel or the next bit of content. I was like, I don't understand that side of things. Yeah. So, but in terms of FPL itself, no, not really.
Okay.
And I know it's not the answer people want to hear. Listen, if you have a good week, you're happy about it. If you have a bad week, you're a bit unhappy about it. But my weekend is completely defined by Tottenham, mate. Yeah. So if I get 110-point game week in a single game week and Tottenham have lost the North London derby, you don't want to talk to me on a Monday morning. It doesn't matter. I've had a great FPL week. Like, it's irrelevant to me in that context. No, that's an extreme example I'm giving.
Yeah, I do always say in this section as well, it's a continuum. You know, there are people that won't get affected at all, and then there's people it will affect a lot.
Of course.
And people, you know, I'm probably somewhere in the middle. But that literally comes into the next question I'm going to ask you, which you've kind of just basically answered. But what is more important to you? I'll ask it anyway. Your football team or how your FPL team does in a game week? And also, does being a Tottenham supporter ever affect your actual FPL decisions? Like, would you not captain Salah, for example, because he's playing Spurs, even though he's the best captain option?
No, I will highly likely captain Salah in game week 34 as long as he's fit. It's the best fixture. So okay. It's just the decision, ultimately. I captain Salah.
That's the blank game week, isn't it, 34?
It is, yeah. I captained Salah at Tottenham earlier this season in the 6-3. 2 goals, 2 assists. It's the best choice. Similarly, I had Cole Palmer vice captain when obviously the Liverpool game was postponed. So he became the captain. Was the best choice, therefore, with Mo not playing. So I've actually had some good returns out of that this season. I think historically, when I first started playing before content creation, I had done things like captain players against Tottenham.
Right.
Thinking, like, this might jinx them.
Oh, really?
No, I've captained Alexis Sanchez against Tottenham when he was at Arsenal and he did really well, so it didn't work. I've done things like that, and I said, like, ironically, in the 16-17 season, and you can't just say, because it was Tottenham was shit, because that was Kane, Dele Alli, Ericsson, all great that season. I refused to have Tottenham players. Same thing. I don't think that I'm going to jinx them. And the first couple of years,
why did you refuse to
have first couple of years on the pod, I did that as well.
Why did you refuse to have them?
Just I'm going to jinx them.
Right, okay.
It's more important to me what they do on the pitch than what they do in my FPL team. So I don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact them. Generally, that was the decision.
It's a bit superstition.
Not to have Tottenham players. So it was a superstition.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where it was like, hang on, James, whether you put Tottenham players in your team or not, he's not going to impact what they do at the weekend. This is fantasy and this is real life. You know, the world revolves around more than you. And it's like, okay, Harry really needs to go in now and stuff like that. So, probably first year and a half of the pod, I refused to do it. And it was quite a big thing when I was like, shit, I'm going to wildcard. I'm going to put 3 of them in, like, because it's the right thing to do or something like that. So it would be more that. So, I mean, to answer the question, it's like, would you rather win the FPL or like win the league? Mate, I'd rather win the Community Shield than win FPL. To Tottenham's, it's more than a life choice for me. That's a proper bad addiction. That's the worst addiction I've got, by the way.
It's interesting, like, fans and superstition. Like, I always used to have this thing. I always have to wear, I think it was when Newcastle were, when they were going for the league against Man United, 95, 96. And I always had to wear the same pants because we were on a winning streak up until we lost, in which case I finally changed. Not that I was wearing the same pants for like weeks on end. I was rotating them, but you know what I mean? It's weird how you get these strange connections in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's still things that I still have going into start, because when you go in behind the South stand at Tottenham, you can go into like any number between, I think it's 17 and 22, and it's like, oh, I went in 20 last week and we won. Right, I'm going in. I'm going in 20 again. I remember at the old White Hart Lane. I always used to the final year at White Hart Lane. I ran up the steps every time going into the ground because there was one game that we'd done it and we never lost all season now. So every single game the last season at White Hart Lane, I ran upstairs.
Wow.
So you used to have, it was like, oh, I ate this before the last game. Yeah, I've had all them things.
Yeah.
You get over it now because, well, I have done a lot, mainly because you know that it actually doesn't impact anything.
Yeah. Players get themselves, don't they? Always remember Paul Ince saying he had to like tuck his boot a certain number of times before they
Paul Ince had to go out like last and he'd have his shirt off when he started walking out.
Yeah. So last question in this section: what advice would you give to anyone who might be struggling this season in terms of their mood or their mental health as a result of FPL?
DMs are open. First thing, I'm sure yours are, but that's why my DMs are open, because I always say this on my bits of content. My DMs aren't open for you to send me screenshots of your team with thoughts because I ain't got time. Truthfully, I'm just gonna look at it and move on. If someone DMs me and wants to have a conversation with me, I'll give them
James,
all the time in the world.
I'm really new to Twitter. I've just understood what that means. That means basically you don't have to. Anyone can message you, basically, doesn't it?
In terms of just DM, yeah, my DMs are open. Yeah, so if it's someone I don't follow, I have to accept the request. If someone sends me a screenshot with thoughts, I'm just deleting it because people think it's a gateway to message me every week with. And I think there's a lot better FPL managers you can ask than me anyway. So you're in the wrong place. In the long run, I'm probably doing you a favor here. But my DMs are open very much for anyone who wants to message me with general. Like, it doesn't have to be struggling with mental health, just generally. Sometimes people feel like they want to say hello to a friendly face or something like that. Do it. I'll give you all the time I've got. And I'd rather give these people my time than I've probably answered your question for your team probably on one of the bits of content somewhere this week. So it's that. I'd say one I would say is don't let someone tell you how you should or you shouldn't feel about something. So like, it's all right for me to sit here and say, okay, FPL's not impacting me. If I had a shit week of content, it would impact me. The FPL result doesn't. I'm more about the strategizing than the decision before than the outcome will be the outcome. But I realize it's not easy for everybody. So you don't listen to think, oh, James feels like that, that's how I should feel. No, if it's bothering you and it impacts you, like, it's fine and it's normal. And be open and talk about it, because you won't be the only person feeling that about FPL this week. Trust me, every single week there are people feeling low about FPL. And every single week there's people feeling high about FPL. And you shouldn't feel guilty about celebrating successes either. I know that's like look at me, I'm posting my score. You want to do that? Makes you feel good about yourself? Please carry on. If you're feeling low about something, don't let someone tell you that you can't feel that way or you shouldn't feel that way, or it's only a game. It is, but it doesn't mean that it can't impact you, right? You ever play Football Manager?
Yeah. Quite a bit.
You know how annoying it is when you try and get a team promoted and you lose on penalties in the playoff final.
Yeah.
You know how much time that's taken.
Do you know what happened? I've mentioned Football Manager a few times in it. I played a whole season and then didn't realise that I'd had it on local saves. The save file was on a local save, and I deleted it by accident. And it was actually 6 years in, but because I'd lost the whole season, I just couldn't get back to it, and it was like 6 months. I mean, that's brutal. That was definitely more detrimental to my mental health than anything FPL would ever done.
But then people would be the same thing. People go, it's only a game.
Yeah.
But you like the amount of time I've spent on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you spent 5 minutes on your FPL team or 50 hours this week on your FPL team. I've got no idea, right? So speak up. I think the most important message, and I think this would go for the majority of content creators as well, is that we're actually all quite approachable. Like, don't feel like you can't. Oh, I'm sure he's busy. Don't think that. I'll find the time. The worst thing that's ever going to happen if you DM me and want some help with something, the worst thing is life help. The worst thing that's ever going to happen is it's going to take me a few hours to get to you. That's the worst thing that's ever going to happen. You'll get a response. So, yeah, always feel like you can approach, be open, don't block feelings away. I get messages and it's like, I think it's stupid to feel like this. It's not. But you probably after battle by speaking up in the first place and understanding how you feel rather than just blocking something up and there's nothing worse than blocking it up and then taking it out on a family member, and then they're like, "Come on, it's just a stupid game" or whatever. So you're better off speaking to people who can at least relate
know what you're
to
talking
what
about.
you're going on about. Yeah,
a lot of other people are probably going through the same thing, considering we all make a lot of the moves.
and there's no rights or wrongs like with that. Like everybody is completely different from that perspective and how much they're impacted. It's the same with me. People are like, James, you still get bothered by Tottenham. Like you've been shit for 30 years. Like, do you not realise by now? It's true. I have to go, yeah, I probably should know better. Yeah, but hopes and dreams and all that.
Yeah, I'm a Newcastle fan. It was so amazing.
Exactly.
I had FPL Nightmare on here, and we basically talked about, because obviously he's a Newcastle fan, how we hadn't won anything for the 40 odd years we've been alive, and then literally a couple of weeks later we win. So it was amazing. So we usually finish games by just again. I've got a couple of questions specific to you here about how your season's going. I mean, how is your season going, mate?
Time recording 63k. I wish we'd done this 2 weeks ago.
Let me just check the date. We're recording this on, as usual, I can't see the date. 25th
of March.
25th of March, yeah. So it's 63k, yeah?
63k. By the time you will listen to this, it'll probably be 163k. It's going all right. Would have helped if I didn't after bloody free hit my team in game week 24 after accidentally completing 15 transfers.
Looking at a draft. That. Yeah, bloody hell.
There's no one to blame other than myself, right?
I should have put that in the mental health bit. That must have pissed you off.
To be honest with you, for about 10, 15 minutes, that did impact me because there's no one use you can. With FPL, it's like what I say. The process for me is very much about the strategy beforehand. Football ultimately will have luck. I could look at all the data, look at all the form, look at the tactic, look at everything, and then ultimately someone could get sent off in the first minute because of a reckless tackle, and then that transpires. That leads to, you lose a double clean sheet and your week just spirals from there. Right, and things out of your fat side. I like the process of the decision making. I can't impact the outcome. With that one, it's nobody's fault other than me.
So you made 15
I
transfers.
Pressed the button.
Yeah, but didn't press wildcard. So then you had to...
No, I wasn't. He wasn't even trying to wildcard, mate. I was looking at a draft for a game we played, minus 56 on our Patreon league, where in theory you have to change all 15 players every week. And I've activated and pressed submit transfers.
I guess
not concentrating about what I'm doing.
I guess the lesson for that is always do that on FPL team.
And I've done it straight away. I've realised what I've done straight away. And it's for 10, 15 minutes, I was like, oh my God. And this is on a Friday morning, by the way, as well. Fortunately, it wasn't a Friday deadline. It's I'm going straight into a podcast now with Surge, and I know I've got to do a live stream in about 3-4 hours. So what am I going to do? Pull myself together.
Yeah.
No other way. So I was beat up about it for literally about 10, 15 minutes. And then once I'm doing a podcast with Surge, it's right, well, how do we fix this? Is it wildcard? Is it free hit? Okay, because of the value, it's got to be free hit, basically. Okay, this is a new challenge. Let's go.
Yeah.
But that obviously did not help me dropping from 25k to 63k last week, because that free hit might have been useful. Although I think, in fairness, I probably wouldn't have played it last week anyway.
I think when I saw that on Twitter, I thought maybe you were having a laugh. I didn't actually realise.
I don't do shit for clickbait, mate.
No. Well, you're doing pretty well then, especially considering that.
Yeah, no, it's a decent season. I mean, when I say I'm shit at FPL, it's more about my other seasons. So I probably would, consider my circumstance, I'm short of chips. I'd probably be quite happy to finish the season now with 5 digits rather than 6.
So I started the interview by saying you're the most knowledgeable man in, well, you've been described to me, and this was by Yelena. Yelena.
Thank you, Yelena.
She said that, but
that's only because she listens to Az too much. That's the problem.
But she also described me as being the most knowledgeable football manager who's never had a top 10k finish and generally doesn't have.
Fair.
So I'm giving the positive and negative side here. Do you think that's you're probably the best manager that hasn't had a top 10k finish? Do you think that's a fair comment? Well, you just said that. And does it annoy you?
No, there's definitely going to be better FPL managers than me that haven't had a top 10k finish. I'm fairly certain of that.
The above average lads haven't. They told me that when Adam came on.
Well, I would say they're probably both better FPL managers than me. So there you go.
Does it annoy you don't have one? I've got one. No.
Nah. It annoys me that Tottenham have lost 15 games this season, mate.
Yeah, fair play.
It would be nice to do, but I also think it's all equatable, right? The 10K finished 15 years ago was it's not irrelevant, but that's not the same as doing it now, is it?
No.
I think to finish top 10K now actually is quite an extraordinary achievement. And I know when we were starting content and in around the FPL community, it was kind of like a buzz thing of like, oh, top 10K. And I know people get really protective about FPL ranks, and or if he hasn't had or she hasn't had this particular FPL rank, then they're not worth listening to. Like, it's all fine if that's what people think. But I think now to finish top 10K now, I think that's remarkable actually.
Yeah. I mean,
How difficult it is.
It's a bit of an.
I feel like I'm getting better year on year, but my ranks probably are staying similar because there's more good players year on year on year. It's only going to get tougher. I'm sure it is. I was listening to Tom, Sam, and on Who Got the Assist again actually the other day, talking about the potential rise of AI and what that might do going forward. Obviously, you've got incredible tools like Review that obviously people use and stuff like that. But who knows? AI might take it to a whole different ball game in the next 4 or 5 years. Who knows?
It might, yeah. I just find it a bit arbitrary because I finished. I'll big myself up here because I'm having a terrible season. But I finished 3K last season, 12K the season before. But to me, I don't really. They're so close. To me, one's not really more important than the other one. They were both just good seasons. Do you get what I mean? I just find the 10K thing like so kind of like arbitrary. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Also, I think like I've said before, like I don't think I could ever win FPL. Yeah. Obviously, that's incredibly unlikely anyway. But like you speak to people like Jamie Pigott who has won it, and you're like, it's real. I could see you, a real person in front of me. You've won this game. Isn't the person who's top at the moment had never heard of Bruno Fernandes till a couple of weeks ago or something?
Really, I'm not sure. It's not Northerner anymore, is it?
Lazy FPL put it together. Okay. I can't remember the name of it. It's a lady who's top, and she hadn't heard of Bruno Fernandes.
Really?
A couple of weeks ago. She's winning the game, mate. Like it's astonishing. Good luck to her. I hope she wins it. That would be incredible. But I'm not immersed enough in the game, I think, to do really well at it. It's not my priority. Most people's FPL priority probably is their rank or beating their mates in the mini league. My FPL priority is the content I put out next week.
What do you think?
That's why I'm a bit different, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned like reviewing that. What are your opinions like on the rate my team tools, AI sort of side of it?
I don't use them. And I think it's great. People can play the game. I always say play it your way, right? And play the game wherever you want. You want to copy my team, someone else's, fine. You want to use tools that help you. You want to use adjustments on algorithms or AI teams. However you play the game wherever you want. Good luck to you, however you do it. But for me, like I said, it's the process. I enjoy the strategy of coming to the own decision myself. Now, almost inexplicably or subconsciously, I will use tools because I will see stats. Right. Inevitably, I will see stats, even if I say I don't look at the data.
Your XG stats
often.
And things like that.
I will inevitably see statistics that will potentially have an influence. But I enjoy the process of coming to the decision myself, just to then find out on Monday that decision was probably wrong. But I enjoy that process of trying to do it myself. And I don't foresee me changing. But I do know ultimately that these models are incredible. And they will do well. And if you follow them, chances are you will do well. So if that's like a priority to people, I would say to people, use a tool like FPL Review. You will probably do better at FPL if you're really struggling. So, but I don't have any problem with them or anything like that. I think the tools sites like that are amazing. Just not for me, personally.
No, if it takes away your enjoyment, then there's no point really, is there, of using it, even if it does improve your rank. Second to last question I'll ask you. I think I'm going to ask everyone this now between now and the end of the season. Assistant managership. Assume you used it. How did it go? And do you think they should keep it for next season?
I haven't used it.
Oh, you haven't, so really?
No.
Oh, is that because you free hit it in 24?
Was it? No, I think it was 23, wasn't it? I free hit it actually because I triple captain Mo 24.
So why didn't you go with the thing that literally everyone seems to time you?
Because I triple captained Mo and I didn't use Review, so I did my own thing. I mean, the triple captaincy on Mo went pretty well, fairness, right? So you can't have them all. 24 or 25, whichever week Mo went off with like the first of the two doubles anyway. So that's 29 points or whatever he got.
When's your plan to use it then?
Ask me after game week 30 will be the
Okay.
decision made. So
Yeah.
I want to chase Emery's or Glasner's if they look good. If not, I'm just going to hold it to the end and hope there's something at the end and attack a few maybe when there's a few teams got little to play for, and you might get more of a bias towards home wins in the last sort of 3 or 4 game weeks and stuff like that. So I'm not set. I would say, and I've said this on my content, I think with the majority of the chips this season, what's been played will have done better than what is left. So, for example, the triple captaincy, if you haven't used it, good luck hitting the 29, right? For
Yeah.
me, who hasn't played the assistant manager, I'm going to struggle to hit the 40s and 50s and stuff we're scoring with Emery's and Moyes and slots and stuff like that. And I think even me bench boosting game week 1, I think
Were you bench
this might
boosted
just
for
be
in
a,
week 1? Oh, how did that go?
yeah. I have the last 2 years, actually.
How did it go this season?
Well, yeah, 20 something, 20
Okay, that's
something from the
decent.
4 weakest players. Again, that's going to be difficult to match, right? So I think most people, probably bar the Haaland triple captainers in that single game week,
Yeah.
most of the chips that have been used will have been done quite well, and it will be difficult to match that
Yeah.
on the running. In terms of the chip itself, being it, I think, like, I don't,
Bennett, yeah.
it's not deep enough for me in terms of, like, if you said they're keeping it, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. I don't care enough ultimately, but I would probably bin it off. I think the game works at its best with simplicity. Every year I get asked, what would you do to improve the game? Quite often I say, not a lot. Not a lot, because I think the simplicity of the game is that it is designed for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people struggle with 7 minus 2 is 5, and there's 5 places between the 2 teams. And what does that even, yeah, that's fine. I can read that this week, but what does that mean next week if they beat them and they beat them? Have I got my Glasner bonus or I haven't? There's too much in it, I think,
Yeah.
that's taken away the simplicity of the game.
And when were
I
Dave?
think there was a lot of asking from the community last year. Oh, we need something different. We want to try something. No, it's not for me, because it's not simplistic like the game should be, I think.
Yeah, and I don't even know.
I'd be more worried about them fixing the bonus points, I think, to be honest, though. It's gone too far the other way this year.
Yeah.
It feels like every striker who scores is on 9 points.
Yeah.
I think it's gone too far that way.
Yeah, it's also with the assistant manager. Like, where would they bring it in? Would it be game week 18? Because otherwise, the table bonus means nothing, does it? Like,
Well, if they did it just from the start next year, I could say now that I would probably bench boost game week 1 and
okay.
assistant manager game week 2.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's more.
Because if you've got a
variability.
scenario like Man City have lost in game week 1 and have got Ipswich at home game week 2 and it's a bonus,
Yeah.
I'm really not thinking about my double later in the season. I'm just getting that done.
Yeah, get out of the way. Yeah. So last question, James. What advice would you? Very generic question. What advice would you give to someone generally to improve or to become a better FPL player?
Ask someone else. probably the first thing. I think it might be, I don't know, how do you improve decision making? That's quite an open question, isn't it? I think for those who do feel the stress of it, the bits that you can do to try and alleviate that will help. Like if you're someone who feels the stress of that decision, when you come to make a decision, whatever that is, you're more likely to make the wrong one, I think. If you can be composed at the time you make the decision, you're more likely to get the decision right. So I don't know if there might be an element of that. There's some people who want to absorb like infinite amounts of content and everything they possibly can. And there's other people who be like, oh, I get really confused when I listen to content and stuff. So I don't think there's like a kind of one size fits all for everybody. This works, this doesn't work. It's probably more about managing emotions a little bit, maybe. And if you can just come to terms a bit more, that doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy successes, but don't be too high about the good and don't be too low about the bad, and find a happy medium. We just enjoy the game and enjoy the process, and the outcome will happen.
Yeah.
You'll probably find you make better decisions. If you're worrying about the outcome as much, you're already more likely to make a decision that might be swayed by, Mo's got higher EO this week,
Yeah.
so I've got to go that way. You're playing with fear almost a little bit. You're more likely to be swayed to something else. Or you might be someone who just likes the risk and is like, well, I'm going against him because I can go against him. I don't know if there is a one size fits all.
No.
What would you say?
Well, I'd say go and watch my interview, which Yelena did with me, where I gave my own advice. But I think generally, I mean, I like to use review to just as a sanity check, if that makes sense, to see what I'm
Yeah, I
doing.
think that's good. Yeah.
And I've got a very specific process that I follow. Like basically every Friday night, I'll come up with an idea on Sunday of the move I want to make, listen to some podcasts over the week, come back on Friday, see if anything's if anything's changed my mind, check out and review, check the team sheets. I've got a kind of process, and then from going through that process, I can. If things go wrong, I can kind of blame it on the process. Do you know what I mean? But it's kind of like sticking to the same thing every week. Do you have a process?
Not so much. I find it really easy with things like, I mean, at the time we're recording now, I've got Palmer flagged, Wood flagged, Vardiol speculated injured. I find that really easy to manage. Not in terms of the decision I'm going to make ultimately
Okay.
but ultimately that decision is going to be influenced in 5 days from now in terms of how many of them are fit and how many aren't. There's no point stressing about it now. It's just, there's too much information from this cup weekend, for example.
I've not even looked at my FPL team for 10 days because it's just not worth it, is it?
No, it's really, really not. Unless if you're on wild card and you want to tinker, like fine. But the rest of us really should be sit tight for this week, probably more than any other week all season, arguably, in terms of waiting for the information being more important. So I find that bit really easy to deal with and shut off from that. But in terms of a process of the decision, I think where I'm quite strong, and this could be labeled as a weakness as well, I come to the decision solely by myself. My process quite often is I will normally make my transfers before my deadline stream. And again, that's because I can focus solely on the content rather than what am I doing with my team. And of course, there's times something can happen 10 minutes before the deadline. You be, he's not starting or something. You got to react to it in the same way to everybody else if you get that sort of information. No, I'm not part of a cartel, by the way. If anyone asks, I never got any of that information at all. But there are times that I might leave it. So say like I'm buying a Man City player as an example. I might think they're the early kickoff. And that's what I did the other week with Marmoush. I was considering a -4 to bring Marmoush in. And he wasn't in the team at Forest. It was like, well, we ain't doing that. And I had already decided I wasn't going to do it. But I had waited to make the confirmation kind of late on. Ironically, I would have been better off taking that -4 and putting him in anyway, because he then went off against Brighton in game week 29, so I'd have been better off.
Yeah.
Just shows you sometimes.
Yep.
So I think my process is kind of don't leave it too late, and I make the decision in my own time by myself, not like truthfully not listening or watching to any other content. And once I make my decision, I'm not swayed.
I definitely, if I was doing deadline streams, make my transfers before. Like, if I don't really watch deadline streams, but if I do, it will usually be Andy's. And he'll often leave it to like 5 or 10 minutes before, and I get stressed that he's gonna.
Yeah, but Andy's got about 20,000 people who just want to copy his team, so he's got to give them the slip somehow, hasn't he?
Well, James, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really enjoyed it. Anything you want to say before we finish?
Subscribe to Gary's channel. It's good. You've done some really good interviews, mate. So keep going strong, mate. It's going well.
Thank you so much, mate. Please do like the video to help people get to see it. Please do subscribe to help me get up to 700 subscribers. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.